Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is titled, Karen Neighbor Built a Legal House on My Inherited Property. I Got the Best Revenge Ever. My grandparents lived in the Czech Republic, and when they died, I inherited both their home and land. It was a beautiful piece of land, and while I didn't think I wanted to move out to such a rural area and live full-time, I couldn't bring myself to sell it. I had no solid idea of what I wanted to do with all the land, but I knew the first thing I needed was to get a really good look at all of it. In their older years, the place kinda became deserted looking. When they were younger, they used most of the land to farm, so now it was all just empty as they stopped farming years ago. I was thinking of trying to do something with the land that would be low maintenance so I wouldn't need to live on the property, just check in or hire some help. I had thoughts like an orchard or maybe even renting the space out to a beekeeper to use. One thing that is important to know about me is that I am what people considered an over-planner. I do not like to just jump into anything without looking things over carefully. The first thing I wanted was blueprints or a layout of the land I had to work with, including dimensions and everything. When I got them though, there seemed to be something that was a bit of a problem. On the far side of the property that was clearly marked as mine now, was a house. House is the wrong word to really describe it because the place was a mansion, and I would say about 90% of it was sitting right on my grandparents' old farm where they would not have noticed it once they got older and stopped roaming the grounds as much. This is when I got to meet the neighbors, and let me tell you right now, it was not a great first introduction. Even though there were two of them, only the husband seemed to speak to me, and of course I will translate all of what he said into English for this story. Neighbor, are you here to finally shut down the old disgusting farm? Me. Why would I shut the place down? I was genuinely confused by his question. Neighbor. The old man that runs it is going to probably die soon. Better to put him in a home and sell the land so decent people can move in. Me. That old man you're talking about happens to be my grandfather who passed away. This is my land now, and I actually came over here to talk to you about that. Neighbor. Ah, I see, you want to know how much we paid for our property, so you know if you are getting a good deal when you sell the land? Me. I am not selling the land. I see on the blueprints that the land where your house is built is actually part of that land, so I wanted to come over to talk about that. I didn't come so you could insult my dead grandfather to my face. I was clearly angry at this point and didn't even try to hide it from him. He tried to feed me some story about how the land was actually his and he bought it off of my grandfather to do him a favor. Then a few minutes later, the story was that the blueprints were wrong, and this land never actually belonged to my family. If you are going to lie, at least stick to a single story instead of throwing a bunch at me and seeing which ones work. Don't worry, I didn't believe anything he told me, and I knew the type of person this guy was. You can tell from the clothing and the way that they looked down on my grandparents for being farmers that they were complete snobs. I just want to mention that them being farmers got my father an education and a chance to have a really good life. I wasn't going to argue and instead just paid to get someone out to survey the land and compare it with the official records. If they did buy the land, then it will be shown as theirs and the whole thing would be over. I would just make sure to never engage with them again. Well, the survey got done and it turns out that the very bad liar was actually lying about everything. They owned a small plot of land next to my grandparents' farm where they put the other 10% of their house and had a small yard. I could even see they bought it and built the house after my grandmother was dead and my grandfather couldn't get all the way to the end of the property anymore. They took advantage of an old man so they could build a mansion just for the two of them. I filed a lawsuit against them right away in order to get their mansion torn down for being built illegally on my property. I might have wanted to let them keep it and pay me a set amount a year to use the land. After they spoke about my grandfather like that, I wasn't going to do them any favors. They didn't have a single leg to stand on and came to me begging to let them keep the mansion and the property. I told them that they didn't own it and I was going to take it to court. The snobs wanted to make some kind of deal so that they wouldn't lose everything. We worked out a deal that I really liked, and they didn't seem to like one bit. Due to what they did, they could have owed me years of money for being on my property illegally. Not to mention money for building on the property without owner consent and paying to deconstruct it if that was what I wanted. I could have run them broke if I wanted, but I started thinking about my grandfather. I knew that if he was alive he wouldn't like to hear a story of how I ruined two people even if they were horrible human beings. Instead, I came up with a solution that would help me solve my problem with them and me not knowing what to do with the land. They had to move out of their mansion and either sell their actual property or build a smaller home within their limits. The mansion, I decided, did not need to be destroyed and instead could be repurposed. I got in contact with an organization and soon the mansion that the snobs were living in was now a homeless shelter. That was something I knew my grandfather would have been proud of me doing. I even am allowing the use of my land for planting so that maybe the homeless people can grow their own food to a degree. Or more buildings can be created to house or help more people in need. That is still not known as of right now, but back to the snobby neighbors. The two of them decided they were just too good to live near a homeless shelter and ended up having to move somewhere else. They also did end up paying me back some money and legal fees and for using the land without permission. I didn't go after them for everything I could have. The property didn't actually get sold to my knowledge because other people also didn't want to live next to the fanciest looking homeless shelter in all of Europe. I am mainly glad I was able to do something good with the land while at the same time not let those people get away with trying to take advantage of my old grandfather. The next story is titled, "Wa wanted me to replace a dead tree." My wife and I purchased a house in a neighborhood that had mostly retired families. There were several other families in the area that had kids, but for the most part it was older folks. We bought our house the day before Thanksgiving and moved in overnight and into the morning. The following Monday I received a letter from the HOA that I had a dead tree in my front yard and I needed to have it replaced. There was a rule that we needed to have 2 trees, one in the back and one in the front yards. I contacted them and said that there was no way I was going to plant a brand new tree that would die immediately and that the ground was too hard. We live in northern Colorado. I told them I would replace it the following spring. They agreed that would be okay. The following spring, on the official first day, they sent me another letter saying I needed to replace the tree. I again told them that the ground was too cold and hard to replace a tree and I didn't want to spend money on a tree that would immediately die. After several exchanges and a phone call to a local nursery, they agreed that I could wait a little longer. Now driving into the neighborhood there is a division between entering and exiting the neighborhood. This is the HOA property and they had a good-sized tree there. The tree had died and was in view of the main road and everyone entering into the neighborhood. I finally got a fine in the mail about my dead tree. I refused to pay the fine and told them when they got rid of their dead tree, I would remove mine. They pushed back and said that as a homeowner they could fine me and I needed to follow the community guidelines. I continued to refuse to pay the fine and had a friend who was a lawyer contact them. They agreed to remove the fines and still said that I needed to follow the guidelines. After a few weeks, when I was driving into the neighborhood, I saw their tree had been cut down. When I got home I got my axe and chopped down my dead tree. I replaced the tree soon after. After this whole incident someone from the HOA would walk by my house and measure my grass and would constantly harass me. This was one of several issues I had with the HOA. Luckily, with a new kiddo on the way, we moved to another town into a larger house. I had a coworker who lived a few houses down from me and she said that they started harassing her too about her grass being too long. She worked nights at a hospital and would sleep during the day. She moved out of the neighborhood shortly after I did as well. The next story is titled, "FHOA No Power Again." Because the FHOA doesn't maintain the road easement. I've posted a few times here before. The crux of my issues is nobody maintains the road and road easement properly. Oh, but they still want their money. A tree fell on the power line along the road, again. It happens often, at least 3 or 4 times a year or more. Whenever there's a big storm. I think it's because nobody maintains anything. Everyone around here waits until something is broken, then with their ducking thumb up their ass, they might start to think about how to fix it. So the road easement, where the power lines run, which is supposed to be maintained by the HOA, is not maintained. Sure, the power company maintains their lines, but they can only do so much. Dead trees, some of which are half down and leaning on other trees, litter the 4 miles of gravel road. So, the dumb a-hole who thinks they run things, who doesn't do anything, does shit like post online that people steal their packages. Down by the mailboxes, over 4 miles away from where our houses begin. This is because the FedEx and UPS won't drive up our road to deliver it to them, because they don't maintain the road. But this is so mysterious to the dumb a-hole who runs things but doesn't fix anything. We can't get packages delivered or keep power on our houses because our neighbors are really dumb idiots. They literally suffer at their own hand, won't let anyone who knows better than them do anything, and complain about it too. Just so stupid people. Anyway, rant over. Off to work I go in an hour. No coffee or breakfast or nothing. Merry Sunday to you all. The last story is titled, "Would I be the asshole for putting a camera in the kitchen without telling my husband?" So some strange things have been happening. My husband is complaining about me forgetting things, like loading the dishwasher and not switching it on, or leaving the stove or oven on after cooking, or not putting things back in the fridge. Things I'm 95% sure I remembered to do. I'll switch on the boiler, aka water heater for US readers, for a hot bath, and an hour later it will be off. My husband says he didn't touch it. Then this morning, I came to brush my teeth, and my toothbrush already had toothpaste on it. What the hell? Did I come earlier? Did I not brush my teeth last night? That's just plain weird. Now I might be in denial, or have paranoia as an exciting extra, or I just read too much Reddit, but it occurs to me this could also be gaslighting in the old-fashioned sense. I have no reason to suspect my husband of doing anything like that, but like affairs, that's what everyone thinks, isn't it? So I would like to install a camera to reassure myself that it's really me doing these things. Obviously, I can't get permission from my husband without defeating the whole purpose, but I don't want to damage my relationship in the, much more likely, case that all this has nothing to do with him. Would I be the asshole for temporarily invading his privacy to make myself feel better? Edit. It seems like step 1 needs to be checking for carbon monoxide. I'll postpone any other decisions until that's been checked. Thank you everyone for your comments and concern. For those concerned for imminent problems while I get that checked, thank you, but if it's a problem at all, it could only be in very low doses. This has been a mild problem for months rather than an acute problem in the last few days. I'm not showing any other symptoms. Husband isn't showing any signs at all. We do have a ceiling-mounted detector that hasn't sounded any alarm, and besides, my bedroom is upstairs. Update. The CO detector is showing 0 ppm, so not the problem. Along the way, I have also learned. CO is not heavier than air, that's CO2, and the detector can be put pretty much anywhere away from airflow or steam sources. Memory loss of this type is not a typical symptom anyway. The symptoms to watch out for are headaches, dizziness, drowsiness and nausea. Taking everyone's advice, I've applied for an appointment with my GP. I will look into getting a vlogger-style body cam to video myself when I am alone. If it shows me forgetting, that will be helpful in diagnosing how I'm forgetting. If it doesn't, I can look into further steps. Quick edit to add smiley face. We're both mid-40s, so unlikely but not impossible to be dementia. My periods are extremely regular, so unlikely to be perimenopausal, but I'll check that with my GP. Thank you everyone for your care, concern, and advice. I am overwhelmed by how helpful everyone is being. For all of you who have shared your own stories of gaslighting, my heart goes out to you. I hope you are doing well now. Last update. A boring update. No carbon monoxide, no ghosts, no one else living in the house. I could only wish my house was big enough or soundproof enough for that to be possible. No gaslighting, and probably no serious illness either. The camera itself was a complete failure. Between how infrequently the issues happen, me trying to be discreet, and me just forgetting to use it, yes, I'm aware of the irony. I have not yet managed to capture any of my forgetting instances. However, when I came to take my medication one day, I saw I hadn't taken it the day before. I remember silencing the alarm I have for taking it. I remember going in with the intention of taking it, but no memory after that. It was too much to think my husband was somehow getting hold of another pack of my prescription medication to set this up, so it had to be me forgetting. But the comments here made me realize why I was entertaining the thought at all. My husband was not reacting with what I considered the appropriate level of concern. In fact, he was actively downplaying everything. So, I sat down with him to discuss it. Apparently, from his point of view, nothing has changed in what I'm doing, just in how I'm reacting to it. He says I've always been absent-minded. He says it's a personality trait, not a symptom, but in the past I'd be, oh did I? Sorry, and now I don't remember that. There must be something wrong. He knows that I'm already being treated for depression, anxiety, so he thought the best thing to do was try to calm me down. He didn't realize it was having the opposite effect. He's willing to support me in anything I want to do, but it's clear he's convinced it's nothing to worry about. His certainty rocked my certainty. And, my doctor agrees with him. The doctor is arranging for blood tests to make sure, but he says he expects the problems will largely clear up when I'm a little further into my course. Sertraline, for the curious. We'll see, but probably nothing to worry about. Thank you to everyone for your concern and suggestions, and the "you're the asshole" did help me back off before taking a step that could have damaged my relationship forever. I am grateful for having a place I could talk this out when I had no one else I felt I could speak to. Your help has meant the world to me. Edit to clarify. The camera mentioned here is a small, portable camera I've been carrying with me and recording myself with. I did not film my husband at any point. Thank you for listening.